Welcome to the end of term report on our long-term Land Rover Discovery Sport. We've had it for, well, it's now done 22,422 miles. So we've had it for, well, over 20,000 miles, and we've got to know it pretty well. So what's good? What's bad? What's the overall impression of it? Let's start off with the good stuff. A few points that have really stood out. So long distance comfort. You get into this car and it's not something that screams, it's not like I get into a Bentley and go, oh, I want to spend hours in here. But some cars you get into and you just start fidgeting after a while, or they're just not nice places to spend a lot of time. This has been fantastic. I've done several long journeys across Europe in it and done very long hours at very unsociable hours, and it's been brilliant. We've had lots of us in here as well. We went to Donkervoort and Bugatti and no complaints. Point two, sort of related to the first one really, but the space in here, it doesn't look like a big car, it doesn't feel like a huge car to drive, and yet within here you can fit everything you want. On the Rolls-Royce shoot, 3 of us slept in here overnight basically, with all the camera gear in the back as well. The fact you can move that middle row of seats backwards and forwards is really helpful. Next up, the handling. I can't say that every day I've been thinking, wow, it's just like a Caterham to drive this, but the times, principally when I've been chasing rallies around the country, following the British Rally Championship, I found myself on some really, really good bits of road. And it might have been possibly a bit of a disappointment to find myself in a Land Rover, basically. Not a bit of it. It's actually surprisingly good. And I hadn't expected that. The sport bit of the name, okay, sport might be taking it a bit far, but you get the point. The way the chassis is set up and the four-wheel drive, it's actually really nicely pointy. Use the weight distribution, bit of brake perhaps on the way into the corner, drive it out of the corner. It's just got a lovely balance to it, and the steering is actually very good as well. So you can place the car really well. You've got a nice high seating position so you can see over the hedges, you can take good lines through corners. Bit of a yump, got the suspension trouble to cope with that. So yeah, the handling I've actually really, really enjoyed more than I thought I would. Final good point I'm going to mention, this isn't actually one of mine. This is something that George, who's potentially somewhere in this car, just out of shot, mentioned. If you're a videographer out there and you're looking for a car that's really good to do tracking out of the back of, one of these is great apparently. That third row of seats that you can put up and down and hang on to when the boot's open, that apparently is top notch. So what are the minus points about this car then? Fuel economy, we flagged that up. Hasn't been brilliant. At times we have managed to get high 30s on a long run, but that seems to be pretty critical. If you're spending a lot of time at about 70 miles an hour, then it's okay. Above that, it doesn't like it. So in Europe, where you can do, say, about 80 miles an hour, then you're struggling to break the 30 mark, to be honest, on the MPG, which is not particularly good. Other things, this infotainment system. Sat-nav in it isn't actually bad. The sound of the system, jolly nice, Bluetooth works very well, but just the way you have to go into this touchscreen and things like that, it's not terribly intuitive. Apple CarPlay would solve it at a stroke. Or, and here we come on to something. Now, we had the lesser spec model of this at one point, which costs approximately £13,000 less. This costing about £50,000, being the top of the line one. It got a smaller screen, had some buttons down here. Much better, much easier to navigate and use. So there we are, save some money. That car was also on slightly smaller wheels, so it rode slightly better. So those are the two big minus points from our point of view. Something that people always bring up, seemingly with JLR products in general, I'd say, is reliability. This is obviously one case, or I suppose two cases. We had that other car as well, which I did about 2,500 miles in as well. This car has never let us down. Genuinely, it's gone everywhere, hasn't been back to Jaguar Land Rover lots being checked over or fettled, and apart from occasionally the outside temperature readout when you first get into the car would occasionally start off at about minus 37 or 38 degrees C and then quickly work out that it was wrong and wasn't in the Antarctic. Perhaps it's just longing to be taken somewhere more interesting, I don't know. But apart from that, this has been incredibly reliable. So we can only speak as we find, and as we find it to be reliable. But I suppose the biggest thing that I shall take away from having this Discovery Sport as a long-termer is not something specific, I suppose, but just how much I've enjoyed having something in my life that can go off-road, and something that's as capable off-road as this, meaning that whilst I haven't done anything particularly extreme, I've been able to look at, say, a green lane like this one in Somerset and think, I wonder what's down there. Or it might be a track somewhere up in the Pyrenees that I think, oh, the photography spot over there might be really good, and off you can go. Or it might just be parking where others fear to tread, or disappearing into a Welsh forest whilst trying to report on rallies and thinking this is absolutely fine, whatever this forest has to throw at me, I know I'm going to be able to get through it in this. I really enjoyed it. It just opens up worlds of possibility and opportunity that in an everyday car I think it's really fun to have. I suppose the Discovery part of this car's name I'd never really considered before, but it is very apt.